Hey Liv, welcome to our podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on. Why don't you get started by telling the viewers all about yourself and your incredible achievements in the HSC?
I'm Liv. I went to William Clark College. I'm starting my first year of university this year at Macquarie University, doing a Bachelor of Science, doing a double major in maths and astrophysics. So pretty nerdy. For the HSC, I did English Advanced. I did Maths Advanced in 2021. I did Maths Extension. I did Physics. I did Chemistry and Science Extension. And I got a band 6 for all of those subjects except for Chemistry and Physics, which I just got a band 5 for with an 89.
Just missed out.
Yep, the dreaded 89 mark. For my 2021 Maths Advanced exam, I got a HSC mark of 99, getting a state rank of 17th. That pretty much sums me up.
That's incredible. It looks like you got a lot of band 6s, so something to be really proud of. And what did you say your overall ATAR?
I got an ATAR of 98.75.
That's incredible. How did you feel when you got all of your marks in your ATAR? What was like your first response?
Well, I get quite stressed easily with my marks, so I was terrified, just not looking at the marks for probably 2 hours, and then I looked at them and it was rather anticlimactic. It's like This is what it's all been down to for the past 13 years, and it's all over and done with. It doesn't matter after a week because you just get your university entrance, and that's about it.
Yeah. It feels like you've put so much time and effort into actually getting those marks, and they mean something to get the degree or to get into uni. But once you get them, it's like they're just numbers.
Exactly. Like after 2 weeks, no one asks you about them anymore because you've got your uni entrance admission, and they're no longer needed.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I was asked, unless it's on like a TikTok video. No one really asks you. Yeah. Okay, you got a state rank. That's incredible. I think you're the second person that we've spoken to that came 17th in Math Advanced in 2021. There seems to be a lot of you that all got 17th. How did you feel when you got your state rank?
Well, again, I get quite stressed easily with marks, so I was quite startled by it. I didn't expect that. I was also doing it a year early, so I was just happy enough with a band 6. So then when that came in, that was pretty shocking. I was really ecstatic about it. Because it's pretty amazing.
Any celebrations at home when you got that state rank?
Not too much. Just went out for a dinner with the family. That was about it.
Yeah, I mean, to still get that when you're a year younger than everyone else, you're doing it accelerated. It's kind of different because you don't have the stress of the other subjects, but also you don't really have the maturity of a year 12 student, and you haven't been through an entire year of struggling with everything. So it's a different sort of feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So did you start off the year thinking that you were going to get like a really high mark? Were you aiming for that 99? Walk me through the year and the lead up to the HSC for you for maths.
So I'm quite a high achiever, particularly when it comes to maths because I love it so much. So I was hoping the entire year to try and end up just getting first in the year, getting a band 6. Those were just my main goals. I did pretty well in my I did pretty well with my results throughout the year. I only had one exam where I didn't come first in it, which did bring me down. I did end up overall coming second in the grade. So I was I was a little bit upset about it, but at the end of the day, I was a year behind everyone. The person that came first was in the year above, so it was a pretty good achievement considering where I was. Then I came down to the actual HSC. Of course, the year 12s, they all had lots of other exams to do, whereas I was just solely focused on getting that Maths Advanced done, particularly because you had COVID lockdown at the time. And so just every single day was grinding the maths papers, the trial papers, HSC papers, trying to get used to the kind of the feel of it. I felt pretty happy with the amount of study that I'd done. I felt that I was able to still get a band 6, which I ended up getting, and I was quite happy with that. I got an 100% examination mark, which I was quite startled by, but because I was second, that brought me down in the state ranks. But either way, I was so happy with getting a state rank either way.
Yeah, like I said, it's an incredible achievement. But does that mean that the person who beat you in your school and came first, did they also get a state rank?
No, they didn't. Because they hadn't done well enough in the actual exam.
Sure.
So it just ended up playing out like that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It shows that like just because you're second doesn't like sort of mean you're behind. You can still get an incredible mark.
Exactly.
You said you did a lot of study. Obviously, you were in lockdown, so there was the time to do that. Walk me through the study for the actual exam. How many past papers did you do? And then how many hours a day were you doing of study?
Well, of course, keeping in mind that I was in the year below, so that was the only subject that I was doing. But yeah, because I wanted to do well, I wanted to strive for my best. I would dedicate a few hours every day to it. I did probably like 2 to 3 papers per day for maths. Yeah. And yeah, I probably got up to like 70 papers in total. Yeah, school trial papers, past school trial papers, HSC papers.
Yeah, 70 papers just for mathematics.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that amount, just saying for my other subjects when I did it this last year, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was the same. So I accelerated mathematics in year 10, and I did 20 past papers, and even I felt like that was a lot. So to hear that you've done 70, that's amazing. But I totally understand that in year 12, you don't have the time to do just 70 for one subject.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, so what about earlier on in the year? Did you, like when it came time for assessment tasks, were you a nervous person before assessment tasks? Did you feel confident? Did you go, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do well in this?
I was definitely very nervous because I lacked a lot of confidence with it. I would just think I've not done enough study for it, which did actually bring me down for that one paper where, I didn't come first in the cohort 4, which taught me, it's important to not overstress it. Okay. You shouldn't, get too nervous. It's good to have a little bit of nerves, but not so much so that it just kills you for the entire paper. I wouldn't do as much study as I did for the HSC, obviously. I would do a couple of past school papers, going through the textbook, things like that. Gradually work up in hours up until the night before the assessment. Making sure I had a good sleep the night before. That was the biggest thing I learned with my maths advanced. Definitely. And making sure I didn't do any study that day. So I had a clear mind.
I had a rule in school. I had some friends that would study the morning of and be like, yeah, this is going to help. And I had some friends that would like stress so much and they'd have like notes walking into the exam. Yeah. I had a very sort of like internally, I had butterflies, but externally, I'd look at them and be like, if you don't know it by the morning of the exam, you're not going to know it for the exam. And there's just not enough time for it to sink in deep enough to understand. And so I had the internal butterflies, but externally I would try and remain calm. But I knew that like internally I was like freaking out.
Yes, definitely.
So you said you obviously tried to to be over nervous and to sort of like, there was that one exam that you did where you were too nervous and then you ended up not doing too well. It's easier said than done to just relax. How did you help yourself relax for future exams?
Well, I guess just remaining like the biggest thing that I learned was I was taught by my one of my favorite teachers at school that in the end, when you actually get your mark, if you're too excited about how you did, that's not a good thing. And being too upset over it, it's not, that's a bad thing as well. What the main thing is to remember is that in the long run, it's not going to matter. It's important for the HSC. Everyone, it's just so hard to explain the feeling that, in the end, it's just not going to matter. But that's the main thing that I had to remember, that it doesn't matter if I just, I do a little bit, I don't do as well as I want to do in this one exam. At the end of the day, it doesn't define who I am. All I can do is the best I can. So.
It's a really weird balance of this means absolutely nothing and it's okay if I don't do well, but also trying in the short term, it means everything and trying to put as much effort in. And it's hard to strike a balance and you can't explain it, but you need to find that balance.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's different for everyone as well. Like some people will do amazing with being so overstressed and having to talk about all their nerves. Others don't need to talk about it. Others don't even get stressed about the exams, which, yeah, I envy those people so much. But yeah, it's different for everyone.
And what about your school? Was your school a sort of cohort of high achievers? Was everyone doing really well, or did you have a mix of people around you?
It was definitely a mix. Like there was a small cohort of like, yeah, high achieving students, similar to me in that sense. But you did have quite the variation in students, yeah, getting ranges in marks from about like 20% to 100% for every exam.
And would you find yourself only trying to associate in terms of study, obviously not socially, but with people who were high achievers, or like what was your sort of group like at school when it came to studying?
It would definitely be a variation. Like again, it's different for everyone, like who works best with them. But yeah, I liked to push myself with people that like in the year above that were going to help me and strengthen my ability, but also that idea of like the study technique of teaching others. So the kids that were struggling a little bit more, I would help them and teach them the content to help like see how well I knew the content. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it really helps you learn, because if you can teach it to someone who doesn't know it, it'll go a long way for you.
Definitely.
I remember a teacher for us said, my year 12 mathematics teacher, and it's kind of a selfish way of thinking about it, but the HSC is a selfish sort of endeavor. But it was up until after the trials, everything's about helping yourself, making sure you understand the content, making sure you're doing the best because you want the best rank. But the day the trials finishes, you go to the weakest person in your class, and it's about helping them. You help all the weekend. And it's obviously you should try and help everyone, but at the end of the day, if you're competitive and you want that high rank, you need to be a little bit selfish. But did you find at your school that there were people helping out the people at the low end of the class to try and get the cohort boosted up, or there wasn't much of that going on?
Not really. Like, I guess the big thing with the HSC is that not many students actually understand how it all works, like how your cohort actually does affect your grades in the end of the HSC. So I found that a lot of those high achieving students would just focus on trying to make sure they did it themselves. In fact, being like, yeah, a little bit secretive about how much study they do and just keeping things to themselves. It was quite competitive at that top end.
Do you feel like it becomes quite toxic towards the HSC in terms of, like you said, that people being secretive?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's because everyone's against each other. And as much as teachers and people try to tell you, yeah, it's a collaborative environment, it doesn't matter, but it's ranks. That's what it all comes down to. Like the ATAR itself is a rank. So, yeah.
It literally, like the R in there stands for rank. So, and did that ever affect you? Did you feel like the toxicity and just the secretiveness ever got to you, or how did you manage that?
Well, it definitely gets to you at some times, particularly like around the HSC trials time. That's probably when everyone hits their lowest point. Definitely for my grade, at least, where everyone's just keeping to themselves. It's getting to everyone's heads because, it's the first big exam everyone's stressing for. Yeah, it does get to you, but I think the main part is trying to find the people that aren't, being like having that, aren't living in that toxic environment, those people that, don't care about it, the ones that want to work with you, the ones that want to help everyone, like bring the cohort up. That's the main advice I have on that.
100%. No, I remember I convinced my mum back in the day to let me get Snapchat at the time when I was in year 10, just because I was like, me and my friend need Snapchat to send pictures of the exam to each other. And that's what we did. We would send pictures of the trial papers that we were doing, and it was all about helping each other do well. So I definitely agree, surrounding yourself with people that aren't in that toxic environment, surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you is a great way to just keep your morale boosted, but also just do well and help others.
Definitely, yeah.
Going off of those lows that you were talking about, what were some of the biggest highs in year 12 itself? So obviously I know you just finished year 12 last year. Talk me through that. What were some of the high moments for you?
I wouldn't say the first term is, because you're just trying to get into year 12. You're learning what it's like and how it's a very different environment. I would say that first term for me was because that's when we started coming closer as a grade through activities and like school events like swimming carnivals, cross country events, starting new initiatives as year 12. Particularly as a prefect, we started like a journalist website, so that meant that was quite exciting for me. And then
were you a part of that?
Yes, I was the co-founder of it. So that was exciting. Like to hopefully for it to stay with the school and grow over the years. That was probably one of my my main highlights. And in that last term, like what we call the post-trial slump, where everyone's starting to party because it's the end. We're about to graduate. It's all exciting, getting those events on the way. That was definitely one of the biggest highlights.
That's awesome. And what was the sort of timeline for you between graduation and then the first HSC exam?
Well, because I was involved in a lot of planning for the graduation, I didn't do much study after the trials. I was mainly focused on that. I would do a little bit here and there just to make sure I was on top of it. I still knew the content, particularly for things like maths. You'll forget if you don't do it for like so long. Then sooner, I had about a week after the graduation day where I just had a bit of time to relax, kind of get back like into my own world without having to deal with all the graduation and all the events. And then I got back into that hardcore mode where I'm studying for those 2 weeks holiday straight. Because it's pretty much as soon as it's so weird how after the trials you feel like, oh, it's months away until the HSC. It's going to be so easy, and then it's right there.
Yeah. And I mean, you only had 2 weeks. You still did incredible given you only had 2 weeks. I know a lot of schools, and me myself, I had 6 weeks. So the fact that you could do all of that in 2 weeks must have been some long days. Were they long days?
Like of course it's different for everyone, but I would wake up quite early, so then I could get started into the day, have like after every 2 hours an hour break. But it would be really hardcore days.
And how long would you study? Like, was it a 10-hour day, a 6-hour day?
So I would wake up around 3:30 in the morning, just have a bit of a half an hour just to kind of wake up.
3:30 in the morning.
Yeah. I'm not a
wow
at all. So I would go to bed at 9 p.m. So I would use those morning hours to kind of work it.
And what time would you stop in the afternoon?
I would probably hit about 7 or 8 where my brain just would die.
So that's like a 16-hour day.
Yeah, I would only do 2-3 papers again in a day.
Okay.
Because your brain just otherwise becomes mush, and so I would do like kind of easy study in that last part of the day, like just going over normal questions, going back through my papers, what were the areas that I wasn't as confident in, would lose my marks in, things like that. And then get to about 7 or 8 and my brain would just be completely dead.
Wow.
Just turn the laptop off, have a bit of a break with my family, watch a movie or something like that, and then go to sleep.
Okay. I mean, but you still did have the 2 hours on, 1 hour off, which I think is the only way to make that 16 hours possible, because everyone has a different way. But the fact that you got a sort of like a solid hour of rest in between just that definitely does help.
Oh, yeah, it did. Yeah.
And so you mentioned family after. Obviously there's family. What were some other things that you did to keep your sanity in sort of the lead up to the HSC, but also throughout year 12? Like it can't all be about school. So what did you do?
Oh, yeah. So like throughout the year, I would go out with family. We would do a couple of things. I would still be social. I wouldn't shut myself off from the entire world. It would only be in those that week coming up to the HSC, coming up to the trials, where I would kind of go into that zone at most with my family. Yeah, make sure I have my meals with my family, so then I can still socialize with them. Watch a movie in the evening or something with them. Small things like that can actually be very beneficial. Just 100%. Having people around you.
Yeah, because if you lock yourself in your room, it is so isolating and it is so boring. And I feel like we know this now from COVID and the whole lockdown thing, that like you can definitely get very isolated at home. So you need to make yourself available to your family. Go downstairs and have dinner with them. Talk to your siblings, talk to your parents, whoever it may be, whoever you live with, and just have social interactions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what about assessment tasks now? Let's say you've just been handed your assessment notification. You've got an exam coming up in 2 weeks. How do you start to prepare yourself for that?
Well, I always would start at the beginning, like that first day you get the notification, breaking down the notification. The most important bit being probably just asking the teacher lots and lots of questions about the exam so I can get as much information as possible about it. Just
basically try and milk as much as you can from them. Yeah.
The number of hints that teachers will accidentally give, like,
yes,
don't worry about that, or I would consider looking at that part. Like, it's so good to get even the tiniest details so you know what and what not to study. Then I guess I would have a bit of going through this routine where you do a little bit of study at the beginning, making sure you dedicate a certain amount of time at the beginning of those first 2 weeks, maybe an hour or something every 2 days, maybe a day, every day even, where I just would go through my notes or go through a couple of questions from class, just consolidating that knowledge. That would be the first week, and then the second week starting that.
Before you go on, sorry. So on that first week, when you say going through everything, are you saying you've already learned everything, you've understood everything, and now you're bringing it all together? Or do you get to the week, like that first week, and you go, oh crap, there's actually things I haven't learned, let me go back and learn them? Which one is it?
Both of them in a sense, because I'll know that I know a lot of it because I'll have throughout the year I make sure I have notes that I'm developing, so then I can have summaries just right there for me when I need them. And so that first week I'm trying to figure out what are the small details that I don't know. Like I'll know majority of it, but then there'll be like the tiniest bit here and there that you've just missed. Like you might have missed out in a class, and so you didn't actually quite understand that syllabus point. And so I just pinpoint those few things. With questions, for example, for maths questions, I would be going through textbook questions, and there'd be like one question where I just didn't know how to do it exactly, and just collating all of that information together, going to the teacher, going to others, peers in your class, going to tutors, people outside of your school to understand what those things are.
Okay, no, that's definitely important because I talk about this all the time. If you leave the studying, the learning to the 2 weeks before the exam, you'll get there and you'll realize, because most of the time there's like say 3 assessment tasks, and so they'll assess an entire topic or an entire module. You can't learn all the content 2 weeks before an exam. You need to spend that week being like, great, I've already learned everything. Let me recall what I've already studied. Let me recall everything that I've processed after school. So it's great to see that that's what you did. And then what would you do in the week before the assessment?
That's where you feel that you've slammed each of those syllabus points. I feel quite confident with it now. And it's just about doing the exam prep, going through doing practice papers, timing yourself. Actually getting a feel for the paper. And so elaborate on that.
What would you do when you do a practice paper?
Well, I would say it's the most important thing ever to do because I did it for my maths advanced practice as well before my HSC, going through and actually physically noting down strengths and weaknesses from the paper. So I would do the entire paper, I would sit it down, go take a break from it, then I would come back and I would mark the paper based upon the marking guidelines given by the teacher. And I would highlight the questions that I had I got lost marks in, whether it be 1 or 2 or the entire all of the marks for that question. I would highlight that question, and then I would write down on the front page of that paper what were my strengths for this paper, what were my weaknesses for my paper, where did I lose marks in this paper. And so I would then keep track of that as I did a couple papers each day, seeing if it was a common trend. So for example, if it was a silly mistake, I'd done a positive sign instead of a negative sign or something like that. So then I would figure out, okay, I keep making this specific mistake, or I actually don't know this syllabus point too well, and then working on those points. So then it actually would make you conscious of it when you were doing the paper. So, for example, with that positive and negative sign, I would then realize I've done this quite a few times in my paper. So I would make sure I was conscious of that whilst doing the next few papers, and eventually that mistake would go away. And so, yeah, it's so crucial to keep track of.
You train the silly mistake out because you're so conscious of it, and you keep saying, crap, I keep getting 95% because I keep making this one mistake every paper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you just said is everything I stand for and is everything I preach in terms of how to study. And it's so great to see that not only you, but everyone that I've sort of interviewed, everyone that I've spoken to understands the importance of it. So thank you for reiterating that. It's so important, and it's the only way to study and do well. Like you said, you did chemistry, right? There's no point sitting there reading your chemistry notes in your balcony, looking at the sun, or whatever you may be doing, just aimlessly reading through paper and page after page. Like, you're never going to memorize it, or you might, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't apply it to a question. They're not gonna walk in and be like, hands up, who can tell me syllabus dot point 4 of module 6? Like, so yeah.
Even so, with that, like, when you read, or you're just reading over your notes, you just think, oh yeah, I know this, I know that. But you can't actually test. Everything. Yeah. You can't actually test whether you know it or not until you do a paper.
Yeah. It's so easy to read it and be like, yeah, I remember the day that my teacher said this. I know all this. It's there. Like, you trick yourself into thinking you know it all. And then if you put those notes away and try to answer a paper, you'll realize you actually don't know it.
Exactly.
And so when you would do past papers, so for those subjects where you had notes, things like chemistry, would you do them open book, or would you do it all closed book?
So I guess I did probably the first few papers open book, so I could get it going, get into the drive of it. But then from that point, I would try to make sure I did it all closed book, so then I could really see what and pinpoint what those weaknesses and strengths were. Did I actually know this, or was I needing the book a bit too much for this dot point?
Incredible. Yeah, I agree, and great to see that you did that. I do the same thing, and I tell everyone to do that. It's a great way to actually memorize your notes as well. You obviously won't use the entire note pack when answering your first or even your second past paper, but it's a great way to start to use them to recall and then apply, and then you kind of train yourself so that once the notes are gone, it's great, I'm pulling from here and now applying to the exam. Amazing. All right. Back to year 12, what was, if you had to pick your favorite, like, best experience of the year, what would you say, hands down, best experience?
That is a tough one. Well, probably my prefect role. Like, I really enjoyed it because it got me to know new people I wouldn't necessarily hang out with in my grade. And like getting to actually do stuff in year 12, starting new initiatives, looking at my actual passions beyond the actual subjects of school, using my time at school to its full extent.
For those that are on the fence about whether they should be taking on those extracurriculars, whether it's a prefect role, whether it's school captain, or even, like, say, the debating team, do you feel like that role ever actually took away from your time to study? Do you feel like it ever disadvantaged you?
I would say it does. I would say it probably takes away, probably a couple of marks here and there. Like, I did know when I was entering my prefect role, I was told this will probably take away at least one ATAR mark from you, which I did see in the end. I mean, I was able to study to my full potential in those last 2 weeks, but it takes away just even a little bit of time throughout the entire year. But I wouldn't let that discourage anyone. Like, I wouldn't say I regretted doing the prefect role, doing all the things outside of it. I wouldn't say like I regret it at all, because it actually makes year 12 more enjoyable than just being study.
Yeah. So if going back then at the start of year 12, if I gave you the option, hey, guaranteed to lose 1 ATAR point, would you still pick to be a prefect? Would you still go through with it?
Yeah, I would. Like, I guess again, it's different for everyone. Like, I know that I have a couple of friends who really wanted to go into medicine, and I know that that's quite competitive. And so I know a lot of those students wouldn't do that. I would still encourage them to do something, whether it be small, but yeah, I understand it is different for everyone. If I had wanted to do medicine, I probably wouldn't have gone with a big prefect role, but
Sure.
I still would have chosen something to do because it makes year 12 enjoyable.
I agree. And look, anyone can sit here and be like, at the end of the day, there's some that want to get the highest mark possible, which, like you said, medicine is a great example. You need your 99. And so understanding why you wouldn't do that. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, 1 mark or your sanity and like enjoying year
Yes,
12, I think it's an easy pick to actually do something you enjoy.
exactly.
All right. Talking about everyone in school now, there's going to be a lot of people that will probably see this on TikTok or wherever they may watch it. What is the best piece of advice you can give to anyone in year 12 right now? They go back to school in a couple of weeks and they're going to start all their exams pretty soon. What advice can you give them?
Well, I guess going into that first year, they've already started year 12, but going into the term one of the final year, it's important to keep a balance and understanding that it is going to be a tough year, because that's the main thing to get your head around. It's going to be physically draining, mentally draining, but you also want to have some fun. You want to enjoy yourself. You don't want to get to the end of year 12 and be like, well, that sucked. So yeah, I think it's keeping that balance between making sure you do your study notes, keep on top of everything, doing regular study, because otherwise you do get to your exams and you're like, I have done nothing, and having to do lots of late nights. But also keeping a balance about spending time with friends, knowing that it's not going to be as much as it was in years 10 and year 11, but you still need to have that to keep your sanity and to keep going.
Yeah. And it feels like I remember term one of the last year, so the first term back, it felt like there was something looming at the end of the year. And it wasn't the HSC that was worrying me. It was like, I'm never going to get as much time with these people ever again. And it doesn't matter how hard I try to stay in touch with my friends now. We got to see each other 5 days a week. We played a lot of handball in year 12, I remember. And that was just what everyone wanted to do, right? And it was just this looming feeling of, I will never, ever get this again in my life. And so I made sure to give it everything and to try and spend as much time with everyone and to just enjoy it, because at the end of the day, you're always going to go home and have time to study, but you're not going to get that time at school again.
Exactly. Yeah.
So year 12 is really long. And year 11 also, sort of like year 11 and 12 go hand in hand together. Did you sort of start year 11 hitting the ground running? Were you like, all right, all hands on deck, I'm going to start studying a lot? Or what was year 11 like, and then in the lead up to year 12?
Well, I guess that first term of year 11, it was quite rough and tumble, because you're getting used to what it's like, because it's very, very different. I mean, I did amazing in my science exams that term, because I was, just have a natural thing for science. But then it was my English and my maths extension 1 marks. I was like, what just happened? This never happens before. It was completely low marks, nowhere near what I was used to. Because it is very different in that first year. It is a step up from year 10 and year 7 to 10. But I also had my maths advanced, my year 12 maths starting that year. And so I felt
Sure.
I understood for that particularly. I need to make sure I put in lots and lots of effort for this. This is the year 12. This is my final year with this particular subject. So I feel like it is a mix depending on the subject. I feel particularly English, when it comes to English, no one sees it coming. But it's very different. I feel it can be a mixture with your subjects, whether you're doing fine, you feel that you're on top of it with your studies, and with other subjects you're not, you didn't expect it, you don't see it coming. So I feel it's quite a mix.
Okay. And how did you keep yourself motivated? Because it's a long time, like year 11 and 12 is 2 years. What did you do if you were ever like, oh, I can't be bothered to study, or you just like, I'm so over this, I don't want to do this at all anymore? Did you have those moments? And if you did, how did you sort of bring yourself back on track?
I felt I had a lot more of those moments, particularly in year 12, because you're just studying a lot, because that you're trying to keep on top of all the content for all the subjects, because again, it's just such a massive step up. And so I feel in those moments I would kind of step away, because there's nothing you can do with your brain when it's saying, I don't want to work right now. Having a step away from it, having a bit of time with the family, go see a friend or something, but then making a plan actually about how you're going to get into that motivate, like how you're going to motivate yourself with this. Are you going to, because obviously what you're doing at that point is draining your brain out. That's what the lack of motivation is in year 12. You're draining yourself in a sense, or you're just not in the zone for it. And it's about trying to figure out those strategies, those techniques that get you into that zone. Sometimes you're just not in the zone for that day, and it's okay. It's just about making sure that you then use that time to kind of have that break with your family, have that break with your friends, but then knowing that maybe the next day, I need to get back into the zone. How am I going to get that? How am I going to wake up and go, yes, I am studying today?
Yeah. You're not always at 100%. There's no way that you can spend every day of year 12 putting 100% effort in. And I feel like it takes more of an emotional and a mental toll if you tell yourself you're going to be at 100% every day, and then there's days where you don't, because then you feel like you're failing each day. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to put in 100% on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I'm going to put in 80% Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then say take a break Friday through to Sunday, and you hit those goals every day, you're actually mentally encouraging yourself. You're proud of your achievement. You don't feel like you're failing. You actually feel like you're achieving. So I do this myself even to this day. I still tell myself, I'm going to say post 7 TikToks today, or I might post 2 TikToks today. And I just don't. And you don't get around to it. And you're reiterating to your brain that you're failing. But if you change your sort of view and you go, hey, I'm actually only going to study for 2 hours today, and that's it. And I'm going to take a huge break tomorrow because I deserve it. And you do both of those, you've just had 2 consecutive wins. And so that really did that motivate you? Did your brain work the same way? Because for me, it does.
Yeah, I'm quite goal motivated. And so I figured in year 11 that a lot of my goals were quite those impossible goals where you're like, I want to do this amount of study every single day. I want to do 5 papers. And, it's about getting those achievable goals. So then you feel like you're having those small wins, which does motivate you in the long run.
100%. And now that it's all said and done, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently at all? Any regrets?
I probably would have used year 10 probably a little bit more to consolidate my study techniques. Because it is quite important. I know that everyone goes, year 10, it doesn't matter. Year 11 and 12, those are the ones that matter. But I feel in the long run, year 10, I should have consolidated my study techniques a little bit more, because I did have to use my year 11. My year 11 year was quite intense because I was trying to figure out what my study techniques were. Whilst
on top of all the new content and all the longer exam times. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's the main bit. I feel otherwise year 12, I was quite happy with how I handled it. I felt I could have probably been a bit more social, but then again, it's different for everyone. So
of course, yeah. Well, that's incredible. And then so plans for this year, you said you're going to be studying, I think it was a Bachelor of Science. Was that right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And where's that at? Which uni?
Macquarie Uni. I got early entry, so yeah.
Okay. How did that feel? Because I know a lot of people talk to me about early entry and have questions. Walk me through the process of getting early entry.
So when, it's important, basically, your year 11 marks, they're the ones that count for it. And so because I'd done well in the end for year 11, I was quite happy with those results. I was able to easily get my early entry. But the hard bit with it is that it usually comes around trials time, at least before HSC time. And that can impact people's motivations. It definitely impacted people in my grade. I guess the main bit about being motivated once getting early entry is that, you still want to do well with your HSC. You want to come out of that and feel proud of something because it's been 13 years that something you've been working up towards. And I feel you want to have something that you are happy with and you are proud of. Of course, for some people, that's just not their thing. They all they want is that early entry and that consolidation, that confidence. I am in university, I don't need this anymore, and that's okay for those people. But I know, at least for someone like me, a high achiever, it's good to have that as a motivation to keep going. But it's not the end of the world if I didn't do well on the HSC, because it is there.
I think that's a great way to think about it. I see both schools of thoughts. I understand why people will get an early entry and then go, I don't need to try anymore. I, like you, understand what it means to be a high achiever and understand that you just want to be proud of yourself. Like, yes, no one's going to ask you about it. And yes, it doesn't mean anything. But I mean, if I've done 13 years of school, I'm not going to stop 2 months before and go, whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I might as well do another 2 months and just see how well I can do. And like, just be proud of what I did.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I think I want to wrap up with a couple more just tips and advice. So obviously you gave some great tips about balancing sort of study and social life for year 12. What sort of study tips do you have, and what like general tips as well do you have for any year 12 students that may be watching?
So I would definitely say that strengths and weaknesses part, actually physically writing it down, what your strengths, what your weaknesses are, so you can keep track of your progress, because that's also a massive win when you see over time that you've actually been, like, a lot of your weaknesses have turned into strengths, which gives you more motivation to keep going, see how far you get. I would also say a big thing for me was talking to students in outside of my school. So I did quite a few tutoring classes, so not just one-on-ones, but having like 10 to 15 kids in a class for, say, maths extension or physics or something like that. And it gets you with people that are similar-minded, like-minded to you, and also have different study techniques, have different ideas. It just opens up like who you're interacting with, and can actually really affect how you study and how you perceive the HSC. So with my maths extension class, I was hanging out with a lot more of selective school kids who had similar mindsets to me, and that's how I got a lot of my socializing, which is another benefit. But in terms of studying, it showed me there are different ways that you can be taught or you can learn how to like approach certain ideas, how to approach certain dot points in the syllabus, how to approach certain questions. And I felt that really affected how I would then approach an exam, because I know that there's more than one way to go about it. I think those are the two main points I would have. And also doing those practice papers, making sure you go through those practice questions. That was really important to my study.
Amazing. And what about tutoring? Do you feel like tutoring really helped you? Would you recommend tutoring for those in year 12 right now, or even people in younger years?
Well, of course, it's different for everyone. But I found it personally, for high achievers, I feel it can be really good, because, you may be happy with a 95 or something like that, but it does push your 95 up to like a 96, 97, 98, something a lot, like a little bit higher, even if it's just by 1 mark. It opens up your social groups. It shows you that there are different people, diverse ways of learning and teaching. I just found it overall fun. It gave me fun in like my learning. Like, I know that school can be quite like a droning on for a lot of students, which it was for me, but it can show you a different way of learning, which is so exciting.
I totally understand. It sounds weird to say that learning is fun and tutoring is fun, but I get it. You're in a room full of students that all want to do really well, which you don't have at school. You're there for a short period of time. The tutor knows what they're talking about, and the tutor's excited to teach all of you guys. It makes for a really fun and collaborative environment, and it doesn't feel like it's dragged out, whereas school is just very monotonous and just feels like it's boring and can sometimes feel like a waste of time.
And it also has that more toxic environment, typically. It can sometimes be in tutoring, particularly with when you're with selective school students who really want to do well. But at the same time, there are always going to be a various range of students. And so I was able to find some close friends in those tutoring groups. So,
No, that's awesome. Well, Liv, thank you for everything. I think we might wrap up there. That was amazing. I know you provided so much value. So I hope everyone watching loved it and enjoyed that. And all the best for your degree starting this year.
Thank you so much.